never thought my acid reflux would lead to cancer. And yet there I laid in the hospital, my 5th visit in just 2 months. The doctor stuffed a tube into my throat, while a laser painfully burned away the cancer cells lining my esophagus, damaging my throat so much that I was barely able to speak. Hi, my name is Nick O'Connor, and in the next 7 or so minutes, I'll show you the alarming proof why the real cause of your acid reflux has nothing to do with the foods you're eating, problems with your lower esophagus, or even really stomach acid at all. You'll see why over-the-counter and prescription medicines are not only powerless to make your acid reflux go away for good, they're even putting your health and your life in severe jeopardy. Latest research shows they increase your chances of getting excruciating stomach cancer by 612%. And you'll find out the reason why later in this video. Now, even though that's the scary part, here's an even more compelling reason why you need to stick with me for the next 7 minutes. As strange as it sounds, my cancer provided me with the clue on how to get rid of acid reflux permanently. It's a simple, inexpensive, and effective approach, backed by numerous university studies, proven to eliminate the real root cause of acid reflux. And as unbelievable as it may sound now, if you use this method I'm about to reveal, as soon as tomorrow morning, I promise you will never suffer from heartburn again, or the acid burps that are both painful and disgusting, and that make you feel like there's a fire in your throat, even if you've been struggling with your acid reflux for decades. Once you find out what this heartburn-destroying method is, you'll save thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars over the coming years, simply by eliminating the need for heartburn drugs, prescription medications, doctor visits, and procedures. But beyond money, and even beyond the overwhelming sense of freedom that comes from banishing your acid reflux for good and getting your life back, this method will also do something even more important. It will immediately slash your chances of being stricken with intestinal cancer, stomach cancer, esophageal cancer, prostate cancer, and more than a dozen other types of this deadly and devastating disease, to practically 0%, because this method also destroys the biggest root cause of all these illnesses at the same time. Even if cancer runs in your family, or you think you're genetically predisposed to it. Now, I know this all sounds pretty incredible, or perhaps too good to be true, but I promise that once you've seen the research and overwhelming scientific evidence I'm about to show you, once you've seen how top scientists and health experts across the world have already confirmed what I'm about to share, that there is a secret killer inside your body that is causing almost all of your gastric problems, everything from acid reflux to stomach cancer, and that there are a few simple, natural, and hassle-free steps you can take right now to defeat this killer and reclaim your happiness. Your life and your health will be transformed forever. That's exactly what happened to Kari Smith of Champaign, Illinois. He's one of the more than 110,200 people who have already used this secret method to become completely acid reflux-free. He writes, "I'm going to be honest, Nick. When I first saw your presentation, I thought you were yanking my chain. I've suffered from acid reflux for years, and it seemed impossible to believe that there was simple and all-natural cure for a condition that had long been controlling my life. After the first 7 minutes of watching your video, I began to have second thoughts. What you were saying made so much sense, and I was incredibly impressed by the scientific evidence you presented. So, I decided what the heck, and used the method you showed me. That very night, I noticed that I didn't get struck with heartburn after eating dinner with my wife. And since then, I've never once suffered from a symptom of acid reflux, even though it's been 6 months now. You seriously gave me my life back, Nick. Thank you." And Kelly Allman of Wichita Falls, Kansas, who says, "I don't want to be gross here, but the warm, burning burp-ups I used to get after most of my meals was so disgusting. I used to like calling them fire burps, and I hated them. I feared them, and they even made eating not enjoyable for me. That's why discovering this website has been such a blessing. I can't believe how easy it is to follow the method you share in your video. It almost felt like I wasn't doing anything different at all, and yet from the very first day, those fire burps totally disappeared. I now recommend your site to every single person I know who has acid reflux." And Armin Hine of Foxborough, Mass., who says, "Nick, before watching your presentation, I'd been suffering from GERD for more than 50 years now. It started when I was in my 20s, and I'm now 74 years old. Besides the constant discomfort that I had to live with for all of those years, the refluxing acid was also burning my esophagus to the point where my doctor said he was going to need to remove a portion of it. In desperation, I began searching the web for alternatives, which is when I found your website. Thank God for that, Nick. Within 2 weeks, my doctor was amazed by what he saw. He said my esophagus had miraculously healed itself, and that the surgery was now completely unnecessary. I'll forever be grateful, Nick." Those are just a few of the more than 110,200 Americans who have followed the instructions in this video. So go ahead and set your stopwatch, because I'll tell you about the real cause of your acid reflux and how you can permanently eliminate it from your body in just a few seconds from now. But before I do that, however, let me just quickly explain who I am and why I know about a completely natural and 100% effective acid reflux cure that you've never even heard of. As I told you at the beginning, my name is Nick O'Connor. I'm 56 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb outside of Boston. Like 60 million other Americans just like me, I'd been suffering from acid reflux for decades. It started out as mild bouts of heartburn in my late 20s, and by my mid-30s, it had gotten bad enough that I went on medications. For the next 20-some-odd years, I tried pretty much every new over-the-counter prescription drug that came out. Some of them did seem to help with the amount of heartburn I experienced, but their side effects left them as less than desirable solutions. I mean, what's the point of reducing your heartburn if you're going to chronically suffer from diarrhea, stomach pains, and nausea instead, right? Unfortunately, however, most of the drugs that didn't give me side effects also didn't seem to work at all, and the acid burp-ups and burning throats kept on coming. So, just like you, I had more or less given up on trying to ever get permanent relief from my acid reflux. I sucked on Xantex and Tums, tried to eat and drink a lot of dairy products in the hopes that the milk in them would neutralize the acids, things like that, and basically just tried to live with the constant discomfort as best I could and ride it out. Well, about 3 years ago, I got a rude awakening. A proverbial smack in the face, which would not only change my outlook on what acid reflux is and what causes it, but that would also ultimately be the key to me destroying the root cause of my acid reflux for good, while helping more than 120,000 other Americans just like you to do the same thing. I was at the doctor's office for a routine checkup. I'd been with my physician for decades, and he knew all about my acid reflux issues. As he put his flashlight down my throat and told me to say "ah," however, his relaxed expression quickly changed to one of serious concern. He said there was some discoloration towards the bottom of my throat, and that it was best to be safe and get it checked out, because it could be a sign of cancer. The next week I saw a specialist who performed an upper GI endoscopy and a biopsy. The tests were uncomfortable, but little did I know that would be nothing compared to the terrible pain I'd soon be experiencing. You see, the test results all showed that I was suffering from a somewhat rare condition called Barrett's esophagus. Now, I say somewhat rare, but it does affect around 6 million Americans each year, and about 20% of people with acid reflux will end up getting it. And without going into too many details, this condition is the result of stomach acid continuously being refluxed over a long time. Ultimately, this burns away your esophagus and replaces it with unnatural tissue that often becomes cancerous. I was shocked, floored, and terrified. I simply had no idea that my acid reflux was putting me at serious risk for this condition, or more importantly, that I was now in the early stages of getting cancer in my esophagus. And it was absolutely demoralizing to hear the specialists say that while they could burn away the precancerous cells, as long as I continued to suffer from acid reflux, and as long as acid was shooting up my stomach and into my throat, I'd never be able to actually treat the condition, and the cancer cells would probably just keep forming over and over again. It felt like I'd just been handed a life sentence where the punishment was excruciating pain and fear. And these feelings were only amplified after my first round of photodynamic therapy, which is one of the most popular ways to address the precancerous cells in your esophagus. That's the part I described to you in the beginning, where the doctors inject a synthetic chemical mixture into your veins, then shove a laser through an endoscope, which they use to burn away the bad cells. It's hard to describe what it feels like, but imagine someone taking a quarter-inch thick cable wire and then jamming it through your throat and deep down into your belly over the course of 60 or more minutes. And that's just the beginning, because how you feel after is even worse. For weeks, you can barely keep food down. You're nauseous. You can't speak. You can't sleep. Your stomach feels like it's being repeatedly stabbed. You're basically bedridden and sick. And as soon as you feel better, it's time for another session, and another, and another. Because unless you somehow can stop refluxed acid from reaching your esophagus, the damage to it will just keep repeating again and again. So like I said, as I lay in bed at home, a hole in my throat, miserable, still having my little burps of acid throughout the day, it felt like my life was over. To be completely honest, and this is obviously something I'm hesitant to admit, I even thought about committing suicide. It just seemed like it might be better than living with pain for the rest of my life, and ending it all would have been the easy way out. Those thoughts of suicide stayed with me for months, actually, until one day I had what I guess you would say was a wake-up call. I was in the bathroom, washing my hands in the sink, when I heard the laughter of my two granddaughters coming from downstairs. They were staying the weekend at our house, although I'd hardly seen them at all because I spent most of my time in bed. But as I heard my granddaughter Angie's innocent little laugh, the way she called out to her sister to try to find her while they played hide-and-seek, I suddenly was snapped out of my dreamlike state of misery. I took a long, hard stare in the mirror